afternoon, everyone. I am Sarah Saeed, and I am an ELL English teacher in the second largest district in Illinois, U46, and excited to be here. I am a teacher in U46's Alternative School Dream Academy, and also I am an IDEA governing board member. So I'm really excited to be here. Take it away, Sarah.
Hi, everyone. I am also Sara, and my name is Sara Candela, and I am a former classroom teacher. I taught high school and middle school English for about 15 years, and now I am in New York State, and now I am the community manager for Focusable, which we will kind of talk about a little bit at the end of this webinar. But a lot of the work that I do is with teachers and students and parents, talking about attention and focus and what it is that we can do on a regular daily basis that is easy and mindful to bring better self-regulation into our lives so that we can actually use that to be better focused in our work and also in the other parts of our lives that we don't really necessarily think about when we think about focus. So I'm hoping to really be able to help us all think a little bit more realistically about how we help our students do that as well.
We're so excited to be here, and it's the end of the school year. As you can see, I have a blank bulletin board behind me. We're in our last couple of days of school here, and so we're thinking about that exit, right? We're thinking about leaving. And the thing is, a lot of times we're not thinking about, because I do this, we're not thinking about, well, what are our students going through as they make this transition from the end of the year to summer? And so I always like to talk about the final countdown, right? So sometimes teachers have numbers in front of their room saying, well, there's this many days left. Or my own school does like a ABC countdown kind of thing for fun, just to kind of equip students with spirit. And a lot of times, like having worked in multiple communities, like I could tell you that you see changes in behavior as summer break is coming closer. With younger kids, you might see, more of an aggressiveness or kids even feeling unsafe. With older kids, you kind of see them drop and like, they kind of think, well, it's over, I'm done. And so it's kind of thinking about, well, how can we finish the school year strong and also give our students those skills? And we got to remember, like, kids are changing environments. The school environment might mean structure for them. It might mean safety for them. It might mean regular meals for them. And now they're going into summer break. And sometimes for students, there's no plan, right? Summer break is the unknown. And so what this webinar is about today is, what do we do to equip students with leaving that structure of a school environment and going into an environment where there may not be structure, there may not be regular meals. So one of the things that we really want to get into is really teaching students how to find routine in their day when they're not in school. So we were doing this all year, right? We were teaching students structures. We were teaching students routines. We were teaching our classroom management structures. In my classroom, we develop a social contract, and it's, student to teacher created norms. And then throughout the year, we do checks on those. And really, we talk about the importance during the school year of why should we know how to self-regulate and think about those structures. But we don't always, towards the end of the year, sometimes it kind of falls flat, right? And we don't always maintain those structures. And I mean, I'm guilty myself sometimes. We don't always maintain those structures, and we don't always give kids things to continue in those structures. And so one of the things that we need to think about is that life skill, right? Of when you're out of school, what do you do? And so really thinking about giving students the language to understand their brains and understand neuroplasticity and how it works for them. Anything you want to add there, Sara?
I was going to add it might even be helpful because we never know what even the adults in the room, our different levels of knowledge of mindfulness and self-regulation are. So it's even helpful to just think about the word mindfulness and that concept and what it means to all of us, not just our kids, for us to understand that being mindful can be as simple as understanding I'm thinking about what I did this morning or what I like an argument I got in with my mom this morning, but I'm also thinking about something I have to do after dinner tonight. And then like your mind gets pulled into these two different directions and you get stressed out. And how do we pull ourselves back to the thing that's happening at this moment? How do we get kids to realize that those things are not bad, but that just recognizing that you're being pulled in different directions with different stressors, that is being mindful, recognizing that those different pulls exist and different demands and responsibilities exist. But how do we teach ourselves that we have the ability to also bring our attention back to the moment at hand? And I think that that's helpful for us as adults to remember how hard that is, as you know, for anybody on the earth. And then when you're applying that to younger people, they really need that guidance to get there because it's such an important life skill, as Sarah was saying.
And so as teachers, we're quick to say, hey guys, let's throw on a Go Noodle and take a movement break. And one of the things that I've been working with students on now, mind you, I am a 200-hour yoga certified instructor. And so this is something that I know how to naturally do. One of the things I try to do within my class period when I structure it is really giving students a chance to ground themselves in the classroom. So we ground ourselves, we breathe, and we also find times where we need to move. And students know when they come to my room and they're sluggish, I might say, let's do a half sun salutation. With high school students, I'm not going to throw on a Go Noodle, but let's do a half sun salutation just to get the movement going. And so that's something that we want students to take with them outside of here, right? I have a standing desk in my room. So if a student really can't sit because they're just struggling to sit down, go move to the standing desk. Like these are things that we do as adults. Mm-hmm. And just really finding time to make movement is so important. And before we go on to summer break, we talk to students about that and say, hey, I was asking you to do these Go Noodles, or I was asking you to do these half sun salutations in class. Or just a simple chair stretch. And what does that mean? Why have I been asking you to do this all year long? And how can you carry that into your summer? And then going into talking about different kinesthetic and movement activities that students can do, right? So it's this idea of, teaching them that walking or dancing is okay, during the day if you need that movement. We took our students on a hike at the Morton Arboretum, which is, for those of you who may not be in my part of the state, it's like a really nice botanical garden. And so like we took them through the walk, we went through a maze, we looked at the flowers, and we talked about how can you use this as a form of mindfulness when you're not with us? And what can you do throughout your day to keep yourself moving? And so again, it's explicit, right? We implicitly talk about it, but it's making that explicit for students to understand. And so when considering this, we also want to have conversations with our students on what do I like to do? Sometimes we become a culture of hustle, right? Where you hustle, you hustle, you hustle. But we don't always talk about having hobbies. And that's a conversation that I have with my high school students. What are some things you like to do physically? What are some crafts you do? I'm fortunate enough to teach like a social emotional learning class where, there are times where I say, hey, here are some coloring sheets. Let's do this mindfully. Let's do this with focus. Let's do this with presence. Sarah, did you want to add anything?
I was going to add something before and my mind got ahead of me. I was thinking of too many things at once, but I was going to say that all of these suggestions, I think, especially when we're modeling it, really will help kids to hopefully, like the way Sarah's talking about, taking them for the walk and making sure that they understand that they have the power and freedom to do this in their own time, helps them internalize this more, right? And be able to stop and refocus and use these mindful tools on their own. And it's so hard for us to do that as adults. And so, it's so interesting to think of kids being able to make these decisions in, a summer like that's filled with freedom, where it's not just a freedom of time, but it's different structures of time. They're around different people, different kinds of activities or no activity at all. And it's so easy to just get sucked into whatever it is that, they're doing on whatever device that they own. And it kind of can become overwhelming to think that could be very well, maybe what summer break looks like for some students. And so in a lot of ways, this is really such a skill for not just what do we do moving into the summer to make sure kids are able to be equipped with self-regulation skills, but the life skill goes way beyond that, because we know that as adults, we could easily get our free time sucked into that same hole that students face.
And I mean, with having technology, so much technology on hand, we love technology, but at the same time, so much technology on hand has brought the world into their hand, where with some kids, you ask them, what's your hobby? They don't know how to respond because a lot of their free time is scrolling. And so really thinking about, well, how can you go charge this and put it away for a couple hours and do a craft mindfully? What are some things you need to do that craft that you have around the house? And just like I've sat down with students and said, okay, here are my hobbies. Here are some things that I am going to do over summer break that I'm passionate about, that I love doing, but that are also going to give me some presence, some relaxation and de-stress. Because a lot of times the anxiety that our students face comes from, I'm going on summer break and I don't know what to do with myself. And again, we have a lot of parents that both parents are working. This is a double income society now. And so when both parents are working, maybe kids are with a babysitter, maybe they're with an older sibling. I mean, so a lot of kids are lucky enough to go to camp, but a lot of kids are not. And so what do they do with their time when they're with grandma or they're with the babysitter and they don't feel like they're being engaged? And so just, again, going through lists, showing them places they can go in their community. We had our local library come in and talk about, well, what do we have for you in the summer? And, what types of books can you check out? And what are some things, because libraries, what's interesting about a library now is that they're not just spaces for books anymore. My library has an entire makerspace, where I live, and there's sewing machines and there's Cricut machines. And so where can we find these resources when we don't even have them at home?
And something else I would add to that is with the issue of so many kids not knowing how to pinpoint or articulate what their passion is, or know what that even means. What do I like to do? What do I like to do so much that I would do it every day? Like, let's be exploratory and open. Show them what we like to do. Let them explore. I'm looking at the list we have here just on the screen, but like if they've never played tennis before, but their friend does, and their friend lives close to them, let's play tennis once a week and see what we can discover together. Like, it's so important to open up as early as possible, all of the opportunities that we can use to learn from each other, and not just learn a new hobby, but it's like there's skills involved in everything that we could pick up and try. And so I think important to not just think about it in terms of what do I love, but also like, what could I discover that I potentially could be amazing at, or that I could love, or that could help me help somebody else. Like, I think there's so much a possibility.
Yeah. And even like just setting aside time. I mean, it depends on what subject you teach at the high school level, but at the elementary level, you have that time, right? And setting aside that time, in my SEL class, we've tried out Jenga. We have a team of us that plan these lessons. There's like 5 teachers, we plant them together. But even I have right now cups of growing sprouts on my windowsill because we taught students about gardening and planting and how that can be fun. Some of our students have been painting rocks for the end of the year for our graduates. So it's just like really thinking about how can you actually in the school building trying that hobby, because a lot of times they're not going to try it at home, right? So trying it in the school building before they go on summer break, and then really like having that conversation of, were you challenged mentally, to think about these things, and how did you push through this emotionally as well when you saw a challenge and you faced that challenge?
Yeah. And something else I would also add to that as well is if you do think of the length of the summer break that's about to, become everybody's daily life. We do know that as much as it seems like a lot of kids will be like, there's a laziness that comes with, I just don't want to do anything. And we feel it too. I think some part of that stress of going back to school can be alleviated when you look back and see you were actually mindful about some of your time. Maybe you did a couple of structured things a week and then gave yourself other free time to roam and not really be structured and hang out or whatever the case may be. But being mindful is also knowing that you're going to come to the end of that period of time where you won't have all of this opportunity to discover and do something for yourself. And I think part of the stress of moving back into the heavy school routine is looking back and thinking, what did I do with that space? Did I waste that space? And so I think that that's also a part of the conversation. How can we think of our future selves and do something today that's mindful of how we might feel in a couple of months?
Yeah. And so one of the things that, Sarah and we've talked about is this idea of presence and focus and teaching kids how to maintain that. And so like, one of the things that kids have to learn is like, it's okay when your mind wanders. I teach meditation and yoga, once a week in my building. We have a time set for students who want to do it, like it's voluntary. And so I talk to them about, okay, you might be in this moment and you're supposed to not think about anything, or you're supposed to focus on an idea I've given you, but your mind is going to wander. And so, as Sarah said, understanding that your mind is going to wander and that there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay. Some kids tell me like when their mind wanders, they start to wonder if they have some type of, neurodivergent disability. I'm like, just because your mind wanders once doesn't, you have to, really think about that. Don't generalize that, and really work on that and understand what that means. And, that's one of the things those are constant conversations I have with students. Like, it's okay when whatever it is, you wander, because you're always going to come back to it.
Yeah. And I think it's the recognizing it that's half of the battle. And that's true for all of us. And we know, like when I know when I'm at my work, when I feel my worst mentally, and it's like my body and my brain are totally disconnected, it's usually because I've let things escape me. And I haven't realized that my mind is trying to do 15 things, or that something is bothering me that I'm not dealing with, or I'm not at least recognizing that it should be dealt with soon. All of these are part of the process, but you cannot have presence and focus and what I like to just call better attention to the people in front of you, to the relationships you have. Attention and focus is not just for sitting down and getting something accomplished. It's for all of the parts of the day and your life. And so how can we be better at that increasingly, just by recognizing when it is that we are kind of wandering?
Yeah. And like I said, you wander. That's fine. Sometimes you'll wander into something that might be a better thought than what you were having. Yeah. I mean, and so when thinking about, the presence and focus, it's really, a lot of it comes to goal setting, right? We have to start with goal setting. So you see this on the screen. I'm actually preparing these for my students. And so one of the things I'm telling them is, a lot of times we wander, like I do it. A lot of times we wander because we don't know what we're trying to reach. We're not thinking about that. So in the summer, what can you take time to do every day? What is one thing you're going to take time to do? Who are you going to spend more time with? Because a lot of things I'm noticing also is that, since COVID, our socialization is not the same, and young people's socialization is not the same. So really being intentional about who you spend your time with, and maintaining relationships, thinking about your parents and how much time you might want to spend with your parent or caregiver, or grandparents or sister or brother in the high school level, middle school level, boyfriend or girlfriend. Like, who do you want to continue to build relationships with? And what is a challenge? Like when we're thinking about hobbies, right? What is a challenge and something you want to learn how to do?
I think that I love this, the goal setting, even down to something like who you're spending time with and the relationships that you're building, because I think it's a really interesting concept to challenge younger people to think about who it is that they are really lending their mental energy to, and
Yes.
they can't really control a lot of that. But at least me as an adult, I'm always thinking about the concept of whatever I am mentally is shaped by the 5 people that I spend the most time around at that week or that day or in life. And so what would happen if you threw that out to a group of young people or high school students as well? Who are the 5 people you spend the most time around? And what control do you have? What is your goal? What control do you have over that? And how can you shape the way that, that kind of world is? I think that also might help kids feel like they have a little bit more control over over what influences them.
Yeah, because when they don't feel like they have control, then they kind of push back.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is putting them in the driver's seat.
Yeah,
and then with setting goals comes creating schedules. And so I actually sat down with a couple students when I created this, and this was all Canva, so we're thinking about the digital end too. This is all Canva. And I actually sat down with students and said, what would make sense going on this list? And a student was like, well, it was funny because I'm trying to learn how to eat healthier. I'm trying to get back on, better eating because I eat too much candy, but, and thinking about eating healthier or gardening or playing an instrument. Some kids like to download apps to learn how to speak another language, but finding those things to do. So just here's a menu of what you could, here's a menu of what you can take time to do. Here's a menu of who you can spend time with if you can't think about it in the moment. And here's a menu of what you can learn how to do. And then really then looking at our calendar and trying to plug in, we know you might work, the older kids might work. Weekends might be a little flexible, but some kids are like, well, I'm not going to follow this exactly. I'm like, that's okay. But you're putting it in there. So the way that I created this is I printed it onto cardstock. This is one side. This is another. They fill it out with pencil or pen, and then we're going to cut them out. And I have a laminating machine in my room. I'm going to laminate them. And so that's what we're going to do. And they can take it home because I think the laminating, that just makes it special.
Yeah.
They still care about, they care. I notice kids care about things more when you laminate them. I don't know, but just laminating it and just, here you go, take it home with you. You've got something for the summer.
And I think another layer to add to the schedule and goal setting is if even the word goal feels a little concrete to people, you can think of it as an intention. Like, what's your intention for the summer? Like maybe each week has a different intention, and it can be a light intention. And then if you look at the list here of mixing and matching what you're going to take time to do and with who that time will be, and then how you could learn how to do something new, you can if your intention for each week is a little bit different, you can kind of mix and match how it is that you're going to go about doing that. Like, my intention this week is to move more, or my intention this week is to play with my younger sister. What do you do to kind of get, and then it can change. And then there's it's a schedule and it's a routine, but there's something intentional about knowing that it's not going to be the same and that you're going to get something really meaningful. And that's part of mindfulness, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So I know like some people think mindfulness is, oh, you're going on this journey, but you have to have structure in order to help you have
Right.
mindfulness. I'm a person who needs structure.
Me too.
And yeah.
And I think if you take the word mindfulness sometimes and just replace it with awareness, that's often what you're doing, is helping yourself be more aware.
Yeah. And so with older kids, we might, be able to give them these tools. With younger kids, yeah, you can teach them the tools in the classroom, but it's also a good idea to give families those tools, because if families have those tools, they could do that work together. My husband likes to take away phones. Like he likes to have, because we have teenagers and a middle schooler, and he'll turn to them and he'll like, 7 o'clock, let's just put our phones away for an hour. Everybody put their phone here. And then he'll look at me, you too. I'm like, fine, I'll put my phone away. But, just encouraging families to do that type of work and have that time. There's this line I was thinking about, and I don't know if somebody said this before, but I don't know or this is a me thing, but instead of summer reading, more summer breathing. And so that's really the notion we have to give to our families. One of the things we can do, this is actually in my classroom, is I have these 5 senses bins, but I also have little bags next to the bin. So if kids want to take things home, there's some things that I'm like, my boba tea stuff, you can't take that home. But there are some things they can take home. Like I've got little, like the things you put on the back of your cell phone to just kind of get that sense of touch and that stimulation. So take a couple things home and use them in the summer. Use them when you feel like you need a fidget or you need a break. Some students respond very well to scent, to help them kind of refocus and bring that self-regulation to them. I've noticed there's a scented putty that's made by Crayola, and it's not just like fruity scents, it's like essential oil scented. And I've noticed a lot of my students have gravitated towards that. And, even like we buy them for like PBIS and stuff. I don't do taste just because like it gets sticky with like, schools and food. But for sound, I've got inspirational stickers so they can think about the inspirational thought that somebody might be telling them. And so they really, high school kids like stickers. They really do enjoy this.
They do. Even I keep a little jar of lavender oil on my desk, in my home office, and then a little like mandarin orange. And I know that each of them have a different effect on my brain. And I know that one will calm me and one will give me energy. And so I kind of use them both at different, and they wind up being like part of a routine for different times of the day. And so I think that the smell I think is really important. It's something that I've found, especially as I've transitioned into working at home full time, which I think is really translates well to the student's home experience outside of school. Like, how do you use those sensory things that work for you, or send your mind to a certain place, or do something to your whole body that you can kind of incorporate into your life outside of school. And that's part of routine, because it will start to fall into a pattern for you.
I saw that Ara had a question. Do we have any suggestions for middle schoolers for a week of loosely structured summer camp? I would do a lot of fun science experiments.
Yeah.
I don't know. Middle schoolers for some reason like making slime.
Which is super sensory.
It's very sensory, especially if you put seeds in there. Like, you could really, I would do a lot of that with them. If you're not a yoga teacher, but you want to put yoga videos on and do yoga with them, I would do some of that too, to teach them that stretching, in order to, just try to think about ways to work on mindfulness. But also, you saw the card I was working on, that could be done during a summer camp.
Yeah, I was going to say that. And also, I'm going to be talking about in a second at the end of the webinar, but incorporating something like the Focusable app, which gives you tons of activities that kids can use on their own and you can do as a group. that are for breathing and movement. And they do incorporate little bits of some like yoga properties in there as well. That is something that we're finding middle schoolers are really taking to.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. So let's move on to, like I said, instead of summer reading, summer breathing. And here's what I mean. My kids, this is years ago, went to a school that would send us home with a workbook and tell us we had to finish it the whole summer. We had the whole summer to finish it. And as a mom, that was a lot of pressure on me because I had to force my kids to do these worksheets that I knew they weren't going to want to do. There were times when I even did the worksheets for my kids, but giving them, or giving them a reading log they have to fill in, like giving them these tasks they have to do over the summer that are academic. I'm not going to say don't encourage academics because we know there is a summer slide, but at the same time, let's think about the activities we are giving kids over the summer. I don't know if schools are still, like elementary schools are still doing the packets. The word packet just makes me go, but because I had 3 kids go through elementary school, but also again, I worked at a school where we didn't want to do that. We didn't even assign homework because the kids need time to play and explore. And so you want to give them summer reading, great, give them a list. And it's more of like the idea of reading mindfully, not reading because you have to fill out a reading log.
Right.
And let's be honest, half of those reading logs aren't even the truth sometimes. Kids just put anything down.
Yeah. And I think when we were talking earlier about giving everybody this opportunity to discover things that maybe they don't even know they have an interest in, I think summer is such an important time to do that. And if we're giving them the breathing room to discover, you know, how many kids do we know wind up picking up reading when it's not being required that this is the thing they have to do in the summer? You know, that might wind up being a choice for a kid that you never thought was someone who considered themselves a reader. And you don't have to think of yourselves as a reader to actually enjoy it. And I just think that there's so much there that they'll discover if we don't just hold them to this is what summer is.
Yeah. And so the packets. Don't do the packets. Don't do the packets. Because not only are you putting pressure on the kids, you're putting pressure on the parents too. I would rather talk to parents on ways that they could work with their kids on self-regulation. Because having worked in an elementary school and been an elementary school AP, those first couple weeks in the K-2, they're rough because kids are getting back into routine. And sometimes, you know, they're not wanting to sit in the circle, or they're not wanting to follow instructions. And when you're helping them continue their self-regulation at home, that is going to lead to a smoother transition in fall. And that summer slide will easily come back when they're able to be in the classroom and they're able to regulate and they're able to focus.
Exactly.
And now Sarah's going to talk about Focusable.
So I'll talk about Focusable for a couple of minutes. And if we do, I could share my screen briefly and give you like a little bit of just kind of to show you what it looks like. But we've mentioned it a few times, and some of the activities that we've mentioned are also things that are or can be incorporated by using Focusable. But Focusable, I'll put the URL here. It's just getfocusable, getfocusable.com. And it is a free app from the people who make Swivel. So if you're familiar with Swivel at all, that is where it comes from. But it is web-based and also an iOS and Android app. But what Focusable does is it gives you, I guess I'll share. It's hard to talk about without just flashing my screen. Don't get crazy about all of the tabs that are open on the top of my screen. They're pretty wild right now. But Focusable looks like this when you open. It is an app that we say is the pulse you need to have better attention. And so we can do 3 different things. We call it recharging, which is where you'll see all of these exercises, a lot of which we were talking about today, like working on things that will help you self-regulate as an adult or a student. Honestly, we have parents, teachers, and students who use Focusable in different capacities in their home and in their work or school life. So this is not a tool that's really designed limited only to students. It's really for everybody. But students love this idea of being able to pick, whoops, that's because of my internet right now, being able to pick from self-regulation activities that, I hope it's from my internet, something's not working. Self-regulation activities that they love, that they know work for them. So whether it's breathing, whether it's movement, whether it's something that works on their visual focus, like we have exercises that are eye relief that kind of take your mind and eyes off of screens and allow you to focus on something in your physical environment for a moment. Like so many of these things we don't think about are all part of regulating how we feel. And then because we're regulating how we feel, we're regulating our attention. And then we're able to move forward into something like, what can I lend my attention to right now? And so like I'll just show you really quick. We call this the pulse of breath that you need for better attention. So can we use this little tool to help us sort of push through distractions that might be holding us back from being our best self? And so this will give you a little timer to kind of give you a focus on something for that moment. Now, I'll just say briefly, this doesn't have to be work. It could be something that you're trying out in the summer. That's a new activity that maybe you're having trouble thinking like that you even really want to do. Do I really want to read this book? Let's see. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to get myself centered and see if I can do this. If I can read for 20 minutes and then still want to keep reading after that. And if I don't, that's okay. But can we give ourselves the opportunity to work on that better attention in a way that allows us to customize it? And then the last part, so we have like recharging, refocusing. I can't use my camera because I'm on Zoom right now. But this, if I weren't on Zoom, this would turn into a camera where I could either screen share or show myself speaking about a brief reflection of what my attention, how I was able to better manage my attention in that session. Like, I tried reading for 20 minutes and I loved it, so I'm going to keep reading this book tonight. Or I sat down and had dinner with my grandma. Like maybe that's where my attention was. And whatever trouble a student or you has in getting to that space and finding that constant better attention, we can always go back. It wants me to save my work. We can always go back to regulating. So we can always go back to the beginning and find those recharging activities. And so I can answer any questions people have, but I just wanted to make sure we gave a little shout out to what Focusable is actually doing that has or can provide you with the tools to do right in your pocket at any time, anywhere, and kind of help you keep track of better attention and incorporate self-regulation into that as well. Great thing to take into the summer.
Yeah, and my recommendation, teachers, if you do want to introduce this to students, I don't know how many days you all have left. I actually just projected onto you can just project it onto your screen in your classroom. You create an account, you project it onto the screen. My students, they like the neck stretch, and it's kind of cool because I like it too, but it's really funny because then you look up after you press the button and they're all doing this. You have a room of a bunch of kids doing this is cute. But I think that even sending parents info about all this. So even creating like a one-pager, see, I'm in high school, but if I was back at the elementary, because I've done both, I would be creating a one-pager for parents of, of course, me, I'd do it in English and Spanish, but here's what you can do with your child in the summer. Because I think like an app like Focusable also helps them set routines because there's like timer on it on your phone and it'll alert you that you need to get on the routine. So even like having parents work to balance those routines again can help with that easy transition into the fall. I know, Sarah, we had a question. about what is the best way to balance tech with soft tissue connections with apps like this.
Where was that question? I didn't.
It was in the chat box. Oh, it went to me.
Oh, I didn't see it. Yeah, I don't have it in
I
front
want
of
to
me.
know what do we mean by soft tissue?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the term means.
Yeah, I'm not sure
Anybody
either.
know- Does anybody know what that means? I don't know if it means like just like being able to balance that, but also like not have them on their phone. Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, so I understand. I understand what you mean. So being able to actually take that and um have it so that they're not on their phone all the time. That's how I'm understanding it. And I mean, with Focusable, it's nice because there's a timer. So it tells you when you can use it. And so you're not going to be on there all the time.
So I'll show you what I do, and this is what we do. A lot of my team does this as well. So because it's web and mobile, or like you can use it on iPad or a phone. What I often will do now, because someone on my team suggested this and actually wrote a blog about it that's on the Focusable blog, is they will open Focusable on their phone. I'm trying to find mine right here. So I'll open it on my phone while I'm working on the computer. And I'll actually set once I put the timer on, I set it up like kind of over here, but it will you can make it so that you don't have to look at it at all and just turn the sound on for everything, including all of the self-regulation activities. So that I know that this start timer is over here, and I can see that it's at like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or whatever it might be. But I could also just not look at it at all. And it will ding me after a certain amount of time and see if I want to keep going and push forward, or if I need a break. And the same thing when I'm doing any of those self-regulation activities, they are both verbal. They have a verbal option that you can turn on and off, or visual. So the idea being like, can you get yourself into a mode where you know what you need? Like that's part of that self-regulation and mindfulness. If you need to get away from the screen, then you should be kind of moving towards turning on the audio, which is what I do. Unless it's a visual exercise that's having me focus on something and practice my attention, I don't look at it at all when I use it. I turn it on and I forget, because you don't have to look at the timer. There's no reason to.
And so Maria asked a really good question. Is there a one pager for families? Not yet.
There isn't yet, and that a part of that is because we actually are right now, between now and ISTE, when ISTE happens in pretty much exactly 1 month, we've gone through a lot of major changes, as Sarah probably can tell you. She's seen it over the last couple of months. But by the time ISTE comes, there's going to be an overhaul of kind of a lot of stuff going on with how not really how it works, but how we're presenting, what it means to get to work towards better attention. So with that, I will be working on a variety of resources that will be supporting the new direction. So we're going to be launching that new direction at ISTE. But I can point you to everything that we have in our current resource section that can help you with the existing form of the app. I'll link that in the chat right now.
And like I said, with older kids, because I have teenagers, instead of sending home a one pager, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
But if I had younger students, I probably would make a one pager that I would send home in a newsletter or something, because I think it's important to have that parent connection.
Oh, sorry, it took me a second to get the link. Okay, there we go.
And so I ask, are there any questions for us?
And maybe even beyond that, if anyone has anything that they've tried and have loved, and you want to drop that in the chat, that would be great to share if anyone has their own experience or expertise in this area that they want to add to this.